Hello and welcome, fellow Sovereigns. And the talk this morning is sponsored by Imelda Marcos, who some of you may know if you're as old as me. And she was, her husband was the head of the Philippines, I think it was, and incredibly powerful, incredibly wealthy. And she came to New Zealand and was interviewed. And the interviewer asked her, he said, "You have unlimited wealth, you had unlimited power, and multi-million dollar of houses and everything a person would want." And he said, "Is there anything else in life you would really like to have?" And she thought for a moment, and then she said, penis. And I thought, penis. Then I realized that in her beautiful Filipino accent, she actually meant happiness, happiness. But it sounded like something else to me. And so the penis got stuck in my brain. And obviously it's still there because I'm talking about it now. So we can get things stuck in our brain, like tunes that, they're trying to stop and going on and on. So in a sense, we can actually choose to have things in our brain. And it's the standard, that boring old exercise of don't think of a pink elephant. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to think of a pink elephant. There it is. And whether it's a green giraffe or a tartan car or whatever, the mind doesn't care whether we're saying we do want to think about it or we don't want to think about it. We just have to think of it, and the yes or no is irrelevant. It goes into our brain. And so there's this current movement about mindfulness, which is about choosing our thoughts rather than having them chosen for us by the outside world, like the penis coming in and annoying me. I could choose to have something else. And so the whole idea of mindlessness, of having no thoughts, is kind of not going to happen, because that is the nature of our mind. We are thought beings. And a way to think about our mind is to think of a crowd of people. So let's say there's 50 people. What's that? It's a crowd, because a crowd is a group of people. So we take away half of them, we've got 25 people. It's still a crowd. And we take away all but 3, we've got 3 people. Is that a crowd? Suppose it is. Mini one. If we take away all the people, they will walk off. Where's the crowd gone? The crowd was a crowd here. Where has the crowd gone? It's not a thing we can see walking away. A crowd is simply something that is a matter of a group of people being together. And that's our mind. Our mind is only in existence while we're thinking. And so the mindfulness is about choosing the thoughts that come into our mind, because we cannot have no thoughts, because then our mind would go. We would become mindless. And a mindless person is dead. If we're alive, we have a mind, and we cannot not have thoughts. That's just the nature of our beingness. And so they say, like Rajneesh or Osho, who later called himself one of those Indian gurus, he talked about the idea that there's a thought and then a gap, and then a thought and then a gap, and then a thought and then a gap, and a thought. So our thinking is a whole lot of thoughts. And some say we have 2,500 a minute or a second. I don't know. There's also big numbers, and I don't know who's counting and how they count them and whatever. But anyway, we get a lot of thoughts. And so they're going through, and so there's this gap between each thought. And so Osho, or Rajneesh, suggested that we focus on the gap between the thoughts. And if we can have a larger gap between each thought, have thought, gap, thought, gap, thought, gap, that gap he called the God space. And that space, that God space, is where we can receive information, let's say, from our intuition, from God, some might say, from spirit, from the universe, from whatever we call that that's bigger than us. If we can start monitoring our thoughts, not allow green giraffes and our penises and pink elephants or whatever have the thoughts that we wish to have going in, then that will bring us more into presence. And while we're monitoring them, it takes discipline. It takes a lot of discipline in every moment to think of the God space. So rather than thinking of the thought, think of the God space between each thought. And it's an infinitesimal millisecond, whatever it is, but they can be expanded. And when we become more aware of the gaps between the thoughts, something happens in the mind. Literally there's an opening of the mind, because the openings are there, and the chatter of the day starts going away. All of those tunes that bug us all the time, or the whatever, the green giraffes and the pink elephants, the things that we don't want to think about go away because we're filling our mind with the things we do want to think about. And when we have the gap focus, then a peace kind of comes into our mind. A simple peace, and somehow the subconscious, if you like, some call God the subconscious, and that's probably blasphemy to some. And so the superconscious, and that's the kind of the access to the mass of information that's out there, constantly flowing through. So rather than monitor our thoughts, which is not a bad thing to do, we can also, we can monitor the gaps between our thoughts. And when there's a stillness that comes from that, just a simple peace. And when we're not thinking almost, but we have this gentle discipline of holding our thoughts in the way that we wish to hold them, and of the thoughts that we wish to hold, there's a peace that comes, and then I'll just say a knowing. It's not like messages come in and go, la da da da, you need to go and do this, you should do this, la da 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 da. It's not through any of our senses. It's not knowing. It doesn't come through our ears, or we don't see things necessarily, or smell things, or what else is there? Taste. There's kind of a knowing that comes from beyond our senses through those gaps between the thoughts. And that, I think, is all I have to say. So rather than monitoring our thoughts, which we can do as well, if that's possible, you can multitask, have a think about monitoring the gaps between the thoughts. And see what happens. Just gap, thought, gap, thought, gap, thought, gap, thought. And watch what happens. It can be quite sort of magical and nice and sweet. And those other ones just kind of go away. Just lovely. So, I wish you many gaps, and I bless you and all who sail in her.